I want to talk about hate crimes against Jews for a second. Hate crimes against Jews are more disproportionately common than hate crimes against any other group here in the United States, like by a pretty wide margin. If you do the math out on how many Jews there are compared to how many blacks or Latinos or whatever, and then it's like, well, how many hate crimes they get? Jews massively disproportionately represented. And we have to acknowledge that fact without falling into bullshit psyop fear-mongering that is used to permit the state of Israel to engage in ethnic cleansing. Fall down the rabbit hole, you start to believe basically anything you see. I've seen a couple of posts about this. There's a very specific kind of like fear-mongering bullshit that really bothers me. So you've probably seen this. People were making fun of this. FYI, leaving the house today is terrifying as a Jew. There's threats all over, especially in New York City, for a global day of jihad. As always, just be aware and stay safe. So this has been widely made fun of, which is good, and I feel like it would be kind of redundant for me to relitigate all of the reasons why it's really, really dumb. Like, obviously, we're posing for a Vogue shot while promoting insane fear-mongering over shit like Global Day of Jihad, or the idea that anyone would just randomly target this woman for being a Jew based on what? Like, Jew, religion, ethnicity, culture, like how, you know, like what? Vibes? And also the fact that it's a Vogue shot and this woman is clearly a millionaire. I thought she was Italian. I would also have assumed that she was Italian, or maybe from the Caucasus, like Kardashian or something. I don't really know. The narrative around the Global Day of Jihad thing basically was completely made up. Completely, entirely made up. The monstrous crimes of Israel need a lot of emotional, like, cover work being done for them in order for them to appear justified. So for Israel to go do all this ethnic cleansing, you need, like, very fearful people. And you make stuff up to that effect. The state of Israel right now is spending a lot of money just openly advertising this. We saw earlier that they were making, like, ads for children where it's like, hey, you like your baby, don't you, hypothetical parent looking at this YouTube ad? Well, Hamas murdered 50 of our babies, or whatever. Or there's like, you've seen that ad on Twitter. I'm not going to show it because YouTube TOS, where it's like this staged photo of blood spread on the ground, and the blood is like a bit on a coloring book or something. And the state of Israel, like the @Israel Twitter, is posting this being like, look at how horrific this is. This is what, like, does this not strike you as weird? Like, can you imagine, like, 9/11 happened and then the US government State Department Twitter is posting videos or pictures of, like, dead babies? Like, that's really weird. Like, really weird, you know? To give a good comparison, like, compare it to the propaganda that we see from Ukraine on Twitter, right? Ukraine has done a lot of propagandizing, obviously, since the war began, since Russia invaded them. But the tone has been very different, where Ukraine generally takes this, like, we are defending ourselves, we are triumphant, we're going to win this kind of oorah attitude. Whereas Israel is like, look at these dead babies, look at these dead babies, look at these dead babies, look at what these Arabs did to us, look at these Muslim things, look at these Jewish babies. It's kind of a little bit psychotic, a little bit. The reason for the difference in tone is because Ukraine is on the moral right. Ukraine does not need to engage in insane, hyperbolic, fear-mongering, like, gonzo journalist shit, because they're morally correct in their defense of themselves. They can focus on the facts at hand. This is, I guess you could, like, this is literally like an argumentative tactic, you know, like appeal to emotion, right? Where Ukraine can be like, hey, we're getting invaded by a fascist empire. And Israel has to be like, look at this dead Jew baby, shakes baby in front of camera. Look at how horrible this is. And it's like, dog, the dead baby is bad, but what the fuck are you doing? Holy shit. Oh my God. It's like disgusting, the extent to which you're weaponizing this, you know? Anyway, that degree of hysteria isn't an accident. It needs to be promoted in order to defend the crimes of Israel. That degree of fervor. We've talked about fascism and fervor, right? Fascism generally requires this, like, non-stop state of agitation, which Israel promotes internally all the time. Internally, within Israel that they're able to maintain this pretty consistently. Externally, not so much. It's a big country, or sorry, it's a big planet. So they're trying to sort of displace this externally. And as a consequence of that, we get stuff like this made up global day of jihad where you had a bunch of people pretending that Muslims were going to like rise up and kill random people everywhere. Why would they do this? Why? They did this exact same thing after 9/11, by the way, where 9/11 was very nationally traumatic, but then after 9/11 nothing happened. Like 9/11 happened and that was it. But they needed to sustain American fervor for years. So fearmongering over Muslims doing like terrorist attacks within the United States all the time had to be like maintained. You guys remember all of the shit, like all the news stories where it would be like, hey, you know, this mosque is associated with jihadist groups, and then there was like nothing. Or you'd hear about like the FBI investigating, or the shoe bomber, or like this kid had like a computer in their backpack, bombs, and then like nothing ever happened. It was all just fear-mongering. Billions of dollars of taxpayer money and years of national discourse wasted on the made up fear of Islamic retribution. You understand why I'm talking about this, right? This was another one that I saw that I thought was quite silly. This isn't any particular person. This is just one of those like Facebook memes that spread around. Alex's friend just has an Uber driver ask her if she was Jewish, and she said no. He said good, because I would have had to kill you if you were, no joke. This is vaguely Arab Uber drivers love doing this. You get in the car and they're like, are you Jewish? And you're like, no. And they're like, oh, good. Would have had to kill you if you were. Ha ha. Now we drive to destination. And then everyone clapped. Exactly. But I saw this circulating like a decent amount. Just a heads up, they are targeting us in Lyfts and Ubers as well. They see our last names, and if they sound Jewish, they ask us if we are Jewish, and people are being attacked because of it. Obviously, it's completely made up. It's silly to even read it, but you understand stuff like this literally grips the heart of like thousands or tens of thousands of people. You know, like they drive themselves into this insane hysteria. Please change your Uber last names to what? My friend just got a text that she was in an Uber and the driver asked if she was Jewish. She lied and said no. He said, are you kidding? No, I heard that too. So f***ed up. What the Okay, again, it's dumb, but hysteria is dumb. That's the point. That's the point of hysteria. I know it's like, it's so trivial, you know, it's like, oh, what? So these like Facebook moms are like freaking out. Facebook moms vote, okay? Trust me, a significant portion of IDF support in Israel comes from Israeli moms on Facebook reposting shit like that, you know? I could spend my entire life promoting, you know, my positions on YouTube and not even come close to the political influence of a single viral Facebook post that seized the heart and forever changed the brain chemistry of a bunch of boomers, you know? That's just how it is. Obviously, don't fall for this bullshit, of course, but also don't let other people get away with it. Hate crimes against Jewish people are real, but that does not mean that people who want to defend the crimes of Israel have carte blanche permission to just make up any old bullshit as a way of driving up fervor. The kind of people who legitimately believe that Arab Uber drivers are turning around and asking people if they're Jewish and threatening to murder them if they are also the kind of people who think the IDF should level Gaza and replace it with a parking lot. That is a one-to-one translation of position. That is a Venn diagram that is actually a single circle. It is a perfect circle, no non-overlapping positions, you know. So I just want to be clear on that. The problem is that in the drive back and forth to argue about whether or not this is bullshit hysteria or whatever, sometimes people get caught up on defending things they shouldn't be or attacking things they shouldn't be. A good example is the beheaded babies in Israel. Did Hamas behead and rape people? Guys, it's Hamas. Of course they did. I don't even know what the point is of arguing this, really. Like, it's Hamas. We're not talking about like vaguely Arab taxi drivers. It's Hamas. Like, if you tell me, hey, Hamas these women and beheaded these babies. Like, well, it's Hamas. They're a jihadist organization, right? Jihadist organizations historically have a very poor record when it comes to discipline and you know, like human rights respecting. Maybe they didn't, but like, in addition to it being bad odds to argue, there's not really a point in arguing the facts of that. You know what I mean? Even if they didn't behead any babies, and I think they did, but even if they didn't, and people said they did, how much does it change things to like accept that at face value and continue on, right? Because that doesn't change the underlying morals of the argument. You can go like, okay, yeah, Hamas beheaded babies. What the does that have to do with like the ethnic cleansing of Gaza? What does that have to do with 1.1 million people being forced to march in 24 hours down to the lower half of the open air concentration camp? What does that have to do with anything? What does that have to do with Arab taxi drivers asking you if you're Jewish? You know, like what does any of this have to do with anything? And the truth is it doesn't. I think that it's important to call out public hysteria and public fervor and to be disciplined, but at the same time, know where to pick your battles and what the actual relevant point is. Technically, even if there were Arab Uber drivers who were randomly attacking Jewish passengers, that also wouldn't justify the massacre of innocents in Gaza. You know, it's all displacement. It's all politics by hysteria. It's all like adjacency politics, right? It's all like an issue next to the issue. Some things are just more optically effective to attack or defend. So it's very easy, for example, to make fun of a woman who is very clearly a millionaire. Like, Jesus Christ. It looks like she's being chauffeured too, pretending that like she's under mortal threat on the global day of jihad while she leaves the house in this expensive car wearing this expensive clothing, like this Vogue shot where her number one like priority was looking good, which you don't. Tacky, sorry. And like pretending this is some kind of like brave moment of solidarity, you know? It's very easy to make fun of that. It's less easy to make fun of like the media back and forth thing about the beheaded baby. I've seen so many people, oh, they beheaded. No, actually they didn't. Oh, they did. No, they didn't. I've seen it go back and forth like 5 times. Of course, agnosticism on this point is probably the easiest position to defend, especially considering that, again, it's not actually relevant to the treatment of the people in the Gaza Strip. It's not actually like the thing, you know, that's happening right now. It's a really difficult tightrope to walk. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? It's like, oh, you know, you don't want to risk decrying something that actually did happen, but at the same time, you can't let any old bullshit through. You want to focus on what matters, but you know that what matters is the shit that makes people hysterical to begin with, and that's often like the adjacency politics stuff. Oh God, it's miserable. It's miserable. It's miserable. Despise Amy Schumer. First, they came for LGBTQ, and I stood up because love is love. Then they came for immigrants, and I stood up because families belong together. Then they came for the black community, and I stood up because Black Lives Matter. Then they came for me, but I stood alone because I am a Jew. Yeah, that definitely describes the experience of being pro-Israeli in 2023, is not the entire Western world rising up to support you. Like Israel engages in what is unquestionably collective punishment and a series of war crimes. And Biden and the EU are like, we stand with you unquestionably. We will always defend. The United States sent a carrier strike group to protect Israel from regional retaliation. Oh, sorry, 2. My apologies. 2 carrier strike groups, the most advanced and expensive military unit. Yeah, I saw this. A landlord in Chicago expressing anti-Muslim and anti-Palestinian views broke into a Muslim family's apartment and attacked them with a knife, injuring the mother and killing their 6-year-old son, Wadia al-Fiume. So for all of the insane fear-mongering about the global day of jihad and Jews needing to like live in terror as they walk the streets, so far, to my knowledge, we have one instance of stochastic terrorism leading to the murder of an innocent, and it was a Muslim. I don't really think you can be a Muslim 6-year-old, I guess. You know, Muslim family's kid or whatever. Biden is finally doing something. Water is back after U.S. pressure. Yeah, again, keep in mind, Biden doesn't want Israel to genocide Gaza. Biden probably resents the fact that this is something he has to deal with at all because there's no political W here. However, and I'm sorry, it doesn't matter what he does now unless he does some drastic shit. Biden has been repulsively complicit in all of this. Look, I know it's politically difficult to challenge Israel under circumstances such as these, but he was literally like, Biden is literally like, yo, dog, we have your back 100%. No one can question us on this. And then the State Department under Biden said not to issue any statements, which it had terms like de-escalation or ceasefire, you know? Yeah, he was like tripping over himself to support them. Like he didn't want to be accused of not being supportive enough. 2 carrier strike groups. But yes, presumably after pressure from Biden, we have reached the incredibly high bar of turning the water back on to half of Gaza. 2 hours ago, unwavering U.S. support for Israel. Yeah, like yeah. This weekend, I connected again with Netanyahu to reiterate unwavering U.S. support for Israel. Thanks, Biden. Thanks for the 50th reminder. Wow, thank you. Like, this is more aggressive support than you showed for Ukraine, and Ukraine was the victim, not the perpetrator, as Israel is currently in Gaza. But thank you for your 50th message reiterating your support. And again, keep in mind, he's only doing this because the political snafu that we've created for ourselves means that both parties have weaponized anti-Semitism as an accusation vis-a-vis support for Israel. He just doesn't want to be accused of anti-Semitism by conservatives. He doesn't want Ben Shapiro to call him a Jew hater, which Ben's probably already said that, so, you know, he should really give it up. It's time all countries unequivocally condemned Hamas as a terrorist organization. Dude, he's unironically doing the condemn Hamas meme. Bro, who the fuck hasn't condemned Hamas? Well, like, seriously. Like, Israel is currently, like, chopping babies up with their missile strikes, and Biden's like, yo, I'm here to engage with a very real and sincere aspect of this discussion that has not yet been properly litigated. We're all condemning Hamas over here, right? Jesus Christ. Pathetic. But he doesn't, he probably feels like there's nothing else he can do. Like his State Department, his advisors, it's like, well, what do? If you even slightly criticize Israel publicly, then everyone is going to jump on you. Like they're going to use this as a huge wedge. They're going to try to convince like centrist or somewhat liberal leaning Zionists, of which there are plenty in the United States, that you're an anti-Semite, you know? But that's no excuse. I'm sorry. You don't get to do a genocide just because preventing that genocide isn't politically popular.